Alright, back again for another round of feedback. This time, giving my thoughts on Alpha 4, the Alpha 4 playtest for MvM Security by ASD. So I'm starting on Manhattan this time just to sort of share some thoughts on the wave design and sort of the way bot spawn plays out. I remember at the end of the playtest, I think Demo Man was complaining a little about the bot spawn shape being sort of frustrating, very similar to this gate A on Manhattan, where you can see the bots coming and you can shoot right up to them because it's a very low, like you're always going to see these bots coming versus a large drop like you have on the first spawn on Manhattan. And if the players are right up in it, you get a sort of an issue of you can't really, like, the bots get stuck in here. If you're waiting right here for them, they don't really want to pop out, which created a lot of frustrations, particularly for the Demo Man, because it makes it a bit harder to plan out your stickies for when all your medics and everything on the Giants would drop down. Also, while we're here, looking at the top walkway, which has much more cover than you get on Security, and it's also much more out of the way. Like, it's not easy to jump up there versus on Security where you have a nice prop climb to get up there. And I feel like that's part of, like, having this cover here is part of what keeps the bots AI working, so they come down the stairs through this enclosed area that's mostly safe for the bots, where they would come down here and then get some high ground advantage on the players, is because they have that cover there. Otherwise you'd just get a row of snipers staying up there, which would force you to either counter snipe or have a spy or something up there ready to counter them. And also, since the Popfile that we've been testing with mostly is based on Manhattan, I want to quickly share sort of my thoughts on how I think that Popfile is meant to work with the shape of the map, particularly its size, but also Manhattan is a big sort of S, like lots of these long winding 180s that these bots have to trek through with all these checkpoints that they hold at. That's very much designed for a sort of map where players have an initial fairly strong hold here where they have lots of height advantage and they're just blasting splash damage down on the bots as they drop in, but then with a secondary route for the bots to flank and sort of push further back, because they immediately get high ground on the players here. So you'd either have to split the team up and have people up here dealing with that, or you sort of deal with them back here, then you know what's going on back there, and you either retreat out or someone jumps up and they deal with them, and cycle around to dealing with things here and here where you have a sightline on both, though you still want some players down in this sort of dangerous pit. But there's a few ways to jump out, as well as the prop climb here. Some nice, easy, quick ways to circumvent the S-curve the bots have to follow, where players can just hop across. And a few, like, decent full-size ammo pickups, decent health, but that's to sort of compensate for it being so dangerous, because once bots are in there, any teammates on the outside really can't cover you from in here. Like, this is a space just with this low roof that tends to be just bots, no players, because of how dangerous it is to be in there with a giant or something. And this is sort of similar, where it's very pick-up bare and also quite large, which limits your ability to use splash damage. But yeah, it sort of pushes the bots at this shape, and then they sort of rest here. And one way I was thinking about it in my head is sort of as the banks on the side of a river, where you have your main flow, and then you have the sides where the silt builds up, where all the velocity and momentum sort of slows down for a bit before moving to the next curve. And that works well with all the routing for the players being sort of in contrast and separate from the main S, where you have all these shortcuts to get around. which allows, you know, players have their hold down here, then they hold here or here and around on this ramp. Then a bot sneaks through, they make it to here because you lose them going through here. They're not exposed very much going through here. This is more sort of a ramp for players to retreat, but also once bots get through this roofing area where players can't see them, they sneak through, they get to the gate, you get all the alerts, the gate cap's relatively quick, so players rotate out just to here, and one or two might deal with the gate, or you might switch your entire defense to dealing with the gate, depending on how that goes. And then, you know, out here you have some advantages to push enemies away, but also some high ground, sort of safe flanks, good spots for teleporters, since it is a fairly large map with spawn being way back here. So, you know, you'll sort of bulk up around here again, deal with these bots, and then occasionally there'll be some with enough HP to keep pushing through and make their way to the next gate, which is even more of sort of a riverbank situation where bots do have to break away from the main path to cap this gate here, and then that sort of changes the dynamic of the map again, with bots coming down here and through here. Though still in a very covered away area where players have a lot of cover from what is a lot of bots pushing out. With this route being more bot heavy, not particularly safe for players, it's far easier sort of on Manhattan to hold these larger outdoor spaces. And it's much clearer exactly where you need to cover, because you have these open sight lines across the main three routes to the hatch on Manhattan. With this not quite death pit, it's not safe, it's not, you can't push bots down here and get much of an advantage out of it, but you've got health, you've got a ramp out, though it doesn't put you in the best location once you get out. And then, yeah, hatch fight's very focused but also very open. You're mostly just holding this door and pushing them back to sort of that B gate until you can deal with the wave, and then the gates reset at the end of each wave. Okay, let's switch over to security. Map. So first off, heavy loadout this time. I went with more of a meta build, Brass Beast, which does make it a lot harder to stay on the move, but also allows me to deal much more damage. Sandwich to sort of heal myself. I did go for the shotgun for one round, but didn't end up relying on it as much, so I ended up sticking with that mostly as an emergency, sort of keep me healthy, but also if I picked up the medium health, I could just chuck that down in case the medic or a teammate's around and they need the health. And then GRU to keep me on the move, which is also pretty meta. So, yep, spawn has, this door has changed. It is now a big open way of exposing yourself out, getting straight into this ramp, which is very useful. You know, you've also got a couple good lines of sight, so you know when Giant's going for the hatch. Not really from here, but because of the new bot rotations, with a lot of bots dropping down here and actually pushing towards the gate, we get a nice clearer view of when bots are cycling their way up out to here, either looking through in here to see them coming up the ramp, because a lot of the Giants, I believe in Manhattan, are set up to ignore the gate. Like, you have gate bots and you have intel bots, and whenever the intel gets picked up, I think is when either the logic for the bot navigation or the AI switches from going for the intel to going for the hatch. So if the intel gets picked up back here, any bots out here will immediately sort of get confused about where they're going. Instead of pushing this way or up through this way, they'll start pushing for the hatch and going into that loop, which very much keeps us in, rather than defending in here, which you can't really, because if bots are going down this way, very short period of time before they're down here and you can't really get at them because you have this cover, which is also good for, you know, defending you from the bots while you're dealing with stuff as they come through the door and your teammates are dealing with stuff down here. But yeah, it really changes how you use this space in general. Like all the changes out the front here. I think this gate got moved further in, though you can shoot through here if I'm remembering right. Yeah. So bots probably gonna get some nasty robot sniper sightlines through there, but didn't notice too much. But yeah, it's sort of, this area hasn't changed too much. Like I said on Manhattan, you know, it's pretty much the same height here where bots are coming out and you see them and it's sort of frustrating that you can't shoot them as they're coming at you. But also, players sort of feel they have to be out here to meet them because this is, like, this whole shelf is actually quite flat. There's no, the bots drop down and they're in a place where they're disadvantaged. They drop out onto an equal playing field with sort of a sight line straight this way, which feels a little awkward. I'm also not sure if that actually needs to change, but it feels very weird. Just the combination of that direction the bots drop out and the fact that they're on sort of flat ground, which allows them to very quickly spread out and sort of take over the space, particularly when they slip this way to drop down and push through this way, which is sort of what forces us to quickly rotate out of this main area into defending down here and the main door, which is kind of odd. But yeah, the rotations around here have changed, and also the sniper walkway I think is in a pretty good spot. I never really, especially since bots used it much more this time, it's interesting how, you know, they drop down here and you immediately have to deal with them in the trench in sort of a form of a flank, but not like in Manhattan where they're flanking higher. They're actually flanking lower where you can't see them, like that area that had the cover over it that, you know, players would generally not feel safe in on Manhattan, because this is now the emptiest stretch of track, though it is nice and in the sunlight, which sort of makes it feel safer. And it certainly is, as long as you know what's coming over, which you generally do, you can feel pretty safe about rotating this way. And this health kit, you know, is much more visible being behind the fence and just up on this hill here in a nice place where you'll be rotating out anyway. Very, very useful positioning on that one. I did find myself going off my muscle memory thinking there'd be some health kit here or some ammo to pick up on the way chasing a giant to the hatch, but generally a much nicer position for it, got a lot more use out of it, and yeah, definitely much more helpful. I did like having the ammo here. It makes it a lot easier to deal with things and counter here while rotating back into the fight, be that down here or going across the bridge and trying to get some early hits on some giants before they get in the gate, maybe joining the flow of bots a little as a quick rotation through the gate to join the team, grab some health. Like having health just inside the door on both of these main doorways has been super helpful for if I'm getting pushed back from outdoors and I want to rotate back in. And this rotation, very useful, very helpful in terms of dealing with everything out here and then being able to retreat with cover and possibly peek out through, like, not going to be exposed to too many bots here, particularly if they're all dropping down this way, and then can maybe sneak the health here and get some hits in as I retreat, or I can get a good view of what's going on up there and push in, collect the health and ammo, deal some damage, and retreat back to sort of get the numbers down before they get to the rest of the team, dealing with more of the meat of the wave. And yeah, sort of the trend, sort of the rotations of the bots, like the paths they took, were much more varied this time. We got a lot more going through the trench, and it actually felt pretty good to deal with them down here, partly because we have this nice big escape out, and also being able to see immediately there's health up here if we retreat this way, and then we know, because this is sort of a spawn route, like we know this is a line that the bots probably won't cross, and we can get into here. Got a nice clearer view as well on these pickups here, and a full health kit instead of a medium now, which feels a lot safer. And also, like if we're down there dealing with bots, we can even retreat as the bots are pushing, get 2 full pickups, and drop down and deal with the gate and push back out, and either deal with them here, maybe retreat, maybe push up this way because we know there's pickups in here, or dash across and duck up here where we even have some cover, which yeah, the dynamic of this area again completely changed, where well, before you'd sort of be around a nest here, sort of cutting off the ramp this way, which makes a lot of sense with the shape the gate is, pushing down a ramp this way to face it probably wouldn't be fun, but also just having this ramp up here into immediate cover and dealing with that main bot line means you aren't really staying here that long, because you don't have the best line of sight on things, and you have pickups to help make sure you've got the ammo you need while you're moving around. You don't have to rely on a dispenser in this area as much. And also, you know, windows here, very helpful for just knowing what's going on outside. Yeah, there isn't actually windows over there, but you do have the door, which gives you a nice clear view of what's going on outside. Like I definitely felt like I had a better understanding of when the loop here was bot free, particularly because I'm spending a lot more time in the trench and being able to see if there's bots messing around back here, which is usually an indicator that they're either standing on the hatch, because that's what the AI does sometimes, or if they're rotating around and up, which yeah, makes it a lot easier to sort of keep a good mid hold, which, you know, this is a really good choke point for making sure we've got any of the bots that are coming in mostly under control before they push back this far to intel, and then also getting on top of the bots as they go to push their way out. So it's a really good middle ground between the spawn and the intel. And intel is now on the wall and behind a gate, so we definitely spent far less time in here. I do like how much quicker this feels for getting out as well, and also this doorway here for a quick sort of rotation back into the fight, or if we don't want to expose ourselves, go through here and oh look, a pickup, and we get a good view of what's going on outside, which yeah, all works together very, very well. I did sort of miss being able to hop straight across here as heavy, though a lot of that was coming from the muscle memory of this is the place, like this is the mid-hold spot. It's to catch the bots before they would drop down to intel here, but now because they push further out into the room, like even once they're through this doorway, they are exposed for longer, where you can either splash damage their feet or just get some shots at them and take them out, and also run out and collect whatever money they drop before they go for the intel. And with the giants, it's pretty much immediately they drop, they have the intel, and they push back out, which means, you know, it's a lot less waiting for them to come around and then pop them again, which sort of changes how you think about how to deal with if a bot gets all the way. Like generally, at least personally, me personally, when they would push through this S-curve, I'd just wait for them to go through, because I know there's no pickups in there, and it's sort of a similar spacing setup to Manhattan, where if you're in here, something like a giant soldier is going to take you out pretty quickly with splash damage and things, so it's far safer to wait here where you can surprise them with the corner or anything else, and while you're out here, you can pick up whatever pickups you need, so you're on enough health and enough ammo to deal with them when they come back around, which felt pretty good. Let's have a look at my notes, see what else we have. Cover the hatch. Yeah, because of the way this intel has sort of changed the whole dynamic of this particular little area, it really pushed us out of doing the 2-fort thing of just having a bunch of NG turtles on the intel, to being more aggressive and controlling sort of the more dangerous choke, the choke next to it, which is pretty rewarding and shuts down most bots, but you got a nice clear view of, like, as soon as you see a bot that's pushing around this gate from the door, they're just dropping down, so you're not going to hit them before they drop down, but that's okay because you can rotate down and catch them on this side. You can even, from up here, shoot down, and if they're nice and low, get most of their health, collect your ammo, finish them off. And if the gate's happening, you do feel relatively safe to drop down and mix in with all this cover, deal with the gate, go up and grab your pickups wherever they may be, and stay on top of making sure bots aren't flanking with this route. You're much more aware of it, and I do like that. Sort of, it kind of makes the map easier, but then the Popfile we had definitely also made things a lot harder, particularly, there's still not a lot of cover here, and that's not immediately a bad thing, but it affects the way you think about playing in this space, in that, you need to drop down. This is where all the bots are, like, that first drop down at Manhattan, where all the bots are in one place and you just spam down in, that's this spot here, really, where you have a nice big ramp to quickly evacuate. You have plenty of safe high ground looking in with pickups nearby. You have a lot of control over the area, and you almost always have eyes on it, so you can really control the floor in here and almost always have safe high ground with pickups nearby to deal with everything in that spot. So it makes for a very strong and defensible mid, no matter how the teams sort of spread out. Like if you're coming straight from spawn, and I do still really like how sort of the main spawn door puts you in the middle of the map, because your concerns are split between the spawn / the hatch and intel, and depending on which way the map's going, you might want to be closer to one than the other, but spawn feels pretty much right in the middle, which means you can always come through the same spawn door without thinking about it. You just, okay, I've respawned, okay, get out of spawn. Do I want to go to intelligence, or do I want to deal with the bots? Nice, simple, quick decision where forgetting what's on the other side of that door isn't going to hurt players. But also, yeah, we still have this nice, useful second door for if things are really tense and we need to rush out here and deal with the hatch, and that puts us in a nice, relatively well-covered position. If we're not, we can duck back in and we're pretty safe because door closes and protects us. And, we can come out, we can deal with bots. We have ammo up here, so you can hold up here for a bit longer, so you can get things under control faster and rotate back into that mid-hold, or even holding up here, because you can just rotate across, pick up your health, and deal with everything out here. It all plays rather nicely, and these pickups are still nice and visible if you're really dealing with the bots, and if you're really dealing with the bots, you really need some good pickups, and here they are. Yeah, I think the cover works pretty well here. I know last time I said I could imagine seeing pickups behind every one of these, but I think that was mostly just coming off having the pickups here, because it is sort of a unique placement to have them outdoors and behind cover. Now that they're in here behind this wall, they feel a lot more sort of traditional in their placement, where this is where a health kit goes. So, running around out here with no pickups much more enforces that this is a place where you chase the bots, and also that cover sort of breaks up their pathing a lot. It makes it a lot easier to safely chase them and deal with them, versus having to drop into a really exposed space and get destroyed trying to stop the bots, and getting frustrated at your team for not being on top of making sure the bots didn't get that far. So it feels nice and fair in sort of the way you push through here. I think most of the feelings in the last playtest about difficulty came a lot from the Popfile, and some of that is from Manhattan being a much larger map. I remember the loose cannon demos and the scouts juggled us pretty hard. I think I hit the sky as a heavy and hit the ground with about 40 HP just from being out here dealing with the demo men, having a decent amount of blast resistance, but getting popped way up, dropped back down, and still managing to deal with most of them, while also trying to stay on top of the cache so that we have all the upgrades we need to stay on top of the waves going as they continue, because the Manhattan waves also do require you to be really on top of your game in terms of getting all the money because they have a lot of variation. Like every other round is like blast and then back to bullets, and it sort of alternates and escalates with each one. So you sort of have to, with your upgrades, go for more of a like you really have to go hard on buying all your resistances. So you go blast, blast, bullet, bullet, fire, fire, crit, 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 and sort of upgrade all of them evenly, so that, like, it might have been the way I played, and I do tend to get myself killed a lot playing MvM, but I ended up, with the Manhattan waves in general, just spending a lot of money on trying to stay alive versus dealing damage. I think by the end, I think my minigun upgrades were like probably halfway on the firing speed and the ammo pool, which is pretty low. We did make it through with that, but yeah, I think I died quite a few times. Not enough to be frustrating, but then I'm used to dying a lot, so I don't know. But yeah, I really like all the new rotations. All the windows I found super useful. It's quite interesting with sort of what the new meta feels like for how to defend the map. And yeah, it's quite a big change that you pushed out really fast. It's really impressive. It's a miracle this map works, considering that you're dealing with gate bots, which from what I hear are some of the most frustrating parts of working out waves in MvM, where you need to have logic to change the bot AI for where they want to go and how they want to push, which, you know, you at least, and you've also like invented a new game mode where you have bots pushing through to get intel and then pushing back, which creates all sorts of interesting crisscrossing shapes through the map. Though I also had a thought on why we have to be so fast dealing with the bots, and it's to do with the line from bot spawn to intel. I am running in almost a dead straight line, and I'm at intel. I didn't move. I moved like 64 units to each side just to make it down this central line, and yeah, it is a very straight line versus Manhattan, which has some long bendy S's. But yeah, we don't have that silt on the riverbanks. We have this river goes in a pretty straight line. Now that isn't so much the main bot route anymore, with bots pushing more this way, which is its own sort of shape, which has sort of even less bend, but it has some interestingly different cover for how bots make it this way. Like there's a lot of places to just get a good view, but also stay behind cover and deal with them and rotate back for a pickup, whichever way you go for it, because, you know, there's full ammo up there, medium there, and then plenty of cover here. You're not actually too exposed to all the bots coming across here, and you've got a clear view of what's going on, and you just back up into the stealth kit, and you're back in the fight, and, you know, just being able to, the cycles of being pushed back and pushing up in this area work pretty well. And some of that is because, you know, it's straight. It's train tracks. Trains go straight through. But yeah, over here, sort of with rotating to get to the pickups. Is that open? Oh, don't think many bots shot through here though, so that's probably fine. Yeah, you know, there's a very different way of traversing the space. So the bots are more going in straight lines to deal with the players, while the players to deal with the bots, the players are more going, if they're down the trench, you know, they're going in straight lines with a few little deviations to the side, where there's that silt on the riverbanks where the momentum slows a bit as you collect your pickup, and then you get back in where everything's flowing much faster. But, you know, if bots are pushing through here, they are going faster because they don't have to cover as much ground, while players rotating around using the high ground to deal with bots do have sort of a wavier path, and it's a good feeling path, but sort of just, and it's not bad to have a straight line. It's very easy to read that bots go straight this way for the intel, but they don't have to turn as much, because the AI will always look for the shortest path, so they will just push right around, right on these corners, and go straight for intel without moving very much at all. And yeah, I think that impacts a bit sort of how fast they can go for the intel. And that has worked in the playtest, sort of the cycle of how quickly bots are on the intel, so it is involved in the gameplay, meaning players do very quickly build an understanding of how that impacts how the map goes, because it's being used, versus if it wasn't being used, then as soon as bots pick up the intel, if a team's like really on top of controlling things out the front, and the bots were to come through and take the intel, and that hadn't happened to that team before, they'd be pretty confused as to what that means. Like, they might have only gone straight to dealing with bot spawn and not understanding what's back here. They might have thought, oh, maybe this is a forward spawn, and maybe, I don't know, they think the map keeps going back along this way somehow, just from what they'd seen of this area, and they might come rushing out here, assuming the bots to be pushing past them to a spawn further back or something, not realizing the intel's already on its way back. Like, players could probably... I'm just foreseeing players might get confused a bit in future with how the intel works, not understanding that it is the intel cycles back to spawn. But, you know, by keeping it in play, by having bots picking up the intel quite often, it's pretty clear to players how that mechanic works and how they need to stay on top of it, as well as sort of most of the traffic coming through this area to push back to the hatch. Like, this is the spot to be for dealing with everything, and from here, from all the information you get from bots coming in this door, dropping down that you get a clear view of through the window to push through this way, seeing all the signs and markers for the gate, and, you know, getting from here, you've got the light, you've got the hazard tape, the computer, the wire, and everything telling you this is where the bots will go to unlock this gate. Okay, so there's something important behind this gate. Oh, there's intel. MvM, the bomb is intelligence, basically, works the same way. So clearly the bots are going to push through here, take this, they go through here. Where's that go? Oh, it goes here, and then they push back. Okay, now we understand how the map works. We can be here defending from this way and defending from bots pushing back as well. Like, yeah, keeping intel on play makes it very, and players sort of in this area is sort of the best vantage point to understand how the map works. And I think, you know, the way it plays at the moment does work pretty well for helping players to very quickly understand how the map works and how they need to play it. And yeah, overall, still very fun. I really like all the changes to the layout, how they change the way we use these rooms, like everywhere. I feel like if you were to look at like a heat map of player tracks, you'd see a lot more of the map being used, and I think that's, for a map this small, that's a good thing. Like, you can very quickly learn how to use all of it. I think this was still unused, but, you know, that's not a problem, because, you know, depending on how waves go later on, this could either be, like I said in the last video, either a powerful bot route, or, like you said in comments and things, also quite useful just for players to retreat, because they've got high ground to shoot back, and, you know, they can be safe staying on top of things with plenty of cover in the form of the surrounding buildings outside the room, but nothing in the room that they could get stuck on, or the bots might shoot at and give them splash damage from. And they know health kits are out here, so they can nice and safely retreat back out to the health kits and join sort of the main fight up here, while also having plenty of cover to duck behind. But yeah, let's see. I'm sure there are a few other notes. I hope I covered the Popfile pretty well, in terms of sort of how Manhattan uses it and how that changes how this map works with it being smaller. Like, particularly, I think those bots that juggled us from Manhattan are built more to force you across that large space in Manhattan, and it's sort of because of the S-curve that Manhattan has, there's sort of on every middle stretch of the S that players would be going across. So players would be going across over the bot spawns. You might be on this one, and then you get pushed back to this one, and then there's still bots there, and you have some sight lines on the bots there. So because you don't want to walk that whole way, and you've got pickups nearby, you're just like, okay, I'll stay here and deal with these bots and push back up. But with something so small, getting juggled, even as a heavy, I felt like I should have been like really planted on the spot, but no, I got sent flying and ended up back here in the health pickups safe zone outside spawn. And that sort of felt, oh man, I can't really help my team from here, but it also made me think more about how to rotate back and deal with the waves down here, or rotate out here and get a clear view on things going on here. Keep an eye out for anything that's like getting too close to the medic or anything. Keep everyone safe from here. Rotate back this way and get in from behind some cover to deal with anything that's pushing through hard, or join the fight down here and either loop up, around and over. Just, you know, generally from either side push our way up into here, because you can still from outdoors push up nice and safely to here to deal with things. But yeah, this drop does change the way you think about it, but in a pretty nice way, because it very clearly separates this is where the bots go, they drop down here and use this ramp, versus players to get back, you know, they got to cycle around a bit longer, but they got plenty of cover to do it, and they get a nice clear view of what's going on. And you'll either cycle back behind this fence and see too many bots for the rest of your team to deal with and join them through this door, still got a clear view, deal with the bots, maybe push back out this way, maybe push back out this way, and get straight back up here. And if you're pushing back out this way, you're still seeing if bots are coming over, even as you're pushing back up around this way. You stay in cover, you get your pickups, and you get sort of control over this front area again. Though, because you don't have any high ground or any splash pit to hit the bots in at here, you know, you lose it pretty quickly, which pushes you back into that mid fight, which is a fun and interesting place to control, particularly because there's a lot of sort of back and forth of controlling this area and pushing back out and wanting to control them before they're in this area that can get overwhelming if there's too many bots, or wanting to deal with them here and sort of deal with the intel trail, because you've got to step back with them because you don't have a strong hold here. You just have a good place to hold against a few bots with cover and pickups and a view of the gate, which is handy if there's any alerts coming through that bots are at the gate. So you cycle through here a lot more, which also means you'll be cycling through here a lot more, getting a lay of the land from this angle and getting all your health, getting an understanding of how intel works, and also, you know, if you go this way and go, maybe I'll rejoin this way, oh, I can just jump straight back into the fight here, and I can drop down if I need to or anything. You know, all the rotations around this area, this door like does a great job of making up for the fact that, you know, I was going to be able to push through this gate. The stairs up being over here instead of here makes it easier to more quickly rotate back into the fight. Like, the new layout really keeps you out of intel, and that works really well. It's really helpful for keeping you focused on fighting the bots rather than camping intel. Alright, closing notes. Really appreciate this Windows, yep. I am really looking forward to seeing where else this map goes, but also don't want to see you burning yourself out. You have been smashing this out really fast, even though you are working with a new, very unique and different game mode, which is going to get frustrating a lot, particularly because you're not wanting to, understandably, not wanting to build a pop file along with the map, which, yeah, pop files are going to be the most complicated part, because you have the gate and you have to deal with the fact that whatever bots you have, they're not going to have a clear path depending on how the team is dealing with things at that moment. Like the bots, you can choose, I'm pretty sure in pop files, which way the bots go in terms of dropping into the trench, where they might be quicker to rotate to the bomb, the hatch, or if they're pushing more for intel or for the gate. And, you know, either route, very easy to have them at this point switch and go for the gate. But overall, you know, it's still going to be very complicated in terms of working out how you want the bots to go, because they could be going this way or they could be pushing back out at any time in gameplay. So that will get complicated in terms of sort of understanding where players will meet the bots. I don't know if people really think that much about pop files. A lot of it's going to probably just be based around time to kill, I think, and how they force players to think about what upgrades they use. I don't really know much about pop file design, but yeah, you have achieved a whole lot with this map, and for being so tight and sort of densely packed, it is all interesting and useful, and makes for some interesting, very close quarters fights versus some of the other maps having longer stretches where you need to rely more heavily on an engineer, which works really well for this map because you might need to move to out here or to out here, which is, any teleport is not going to be super useful unless it's maybe dropping you around here maybe to get a different angle to join in on the fight and deal with bots coming in the major routes as well as Intel coming back. Like, that might be a good teleporter spot, but in general you're not going to need to rely on a teleporter much, which is going to be pretty useful because it means the player gets to decide where they need to be useful. And you know, coming out of this spawn door, you have lots of safe views of what's going on and where you're needed, which is really helpful because I feel like people are definitely not going to be looking all that much at the HUD when things are at their most hectic. They're going to want to be seeing the map and knowing where they're needed, and it requires still a lot of being on your toes and a lot of thinking, okay, where does my team need me? And sort of the openness of the indoor space and all these fences and everything works really well for making that work. You've really pulled off a pretty good way of doing the shape, and a really neat aesthetic as well with the lighting and the girders and everything, and you know, everything being sort of flat versus these box roofs. And yeah, I like being able to hop up on top here as well, which, you know, is going to be more useful for a splashy class. I'm pretty sure this is all no build and everything, but you know, really good high spot again to get a good lay of the land. And the ramp on this roof, much like the shed outside, you can get some cover while you're dealing with things and drop down and collect pickups and deal with things you can see. And you know, that works really, really well, and is sort of a running theme through this whole map of plenty of spaces where you have high ground, you can see what's going on, you can make some choices, grab some health if you need it, if it was a bad decision to pop out, and very quickly rotate to where your team needs you. It doesn't take long to learn how to play the map, and that works really, really well. But yeah, it is still an absolute miracle that the bot pathing works as well as it does. It's still, I'm sure, from the mapping end, gonna feel really hectic and chaotic trying to wrangle all these bots, but from the 2 playtests so far, it ran a lot smoother than I was expecting as soon as I saw what the game mode was. And yeah, it's really impressive that this works, and it's all presented in a way that looks beautiful, and in terms of playing the map is really easy to quickly understand. And you've done an amazing job, and I can't wait to see more. Okay, see you in the next one.